So let's go to our first game. LSU travels to Starkville to play Mississippi State. Mississippi State team that came up big against Arizona in an overtime game. So what do you think of this game, Darren? When you look at both of these teams?
If I'm LSU, the thing that concerns me is the fact that Mississippi State has shown a running game. I know it's not been against top tier talent, but they've still showed a running game. And if you look at Will Rogers' stats, I mean, I think he only had like 18 or 20 passing attempts this most recent game. So comparative to what we're used to seeing with Will Rogers, that seems a little off. So it makes you kind of wonder, are they holding him back? Are there some things they're not showing until they get to this game, unless they had to? So if I'm LSU, that concerns me a little bit. I'm just not going to put a whole lot of stock in the LSU Grambling thing. Yes, they scored 73 points, but it was also Grambling. I think putting stock in those games is part of what got us to what this week looked like with some of the losses that came up. That being said, I do believe there's some credibility in the fact that Jaden Daniels was able to get his feet back under him, gain some confidence, and come out looking like what we expected him to at the start of the season against Mississippi State. And because of that, I think this is an LSU win. What about you, Ben?
I agree with you. We learned nothing about LSU against Grambling State.
Right.
This is the game where we see, has LSU learned anything from the walloping they took from Florida State? Mississippi State will be a tough opponent. They'll be ready for LSU. LSU on the roster, of course, has more talent from top to bottom, but that doesn't always translate into a victory. With that said, though, I'm going to go with the Tigers. If they play up to their capability, they should come out of this game with a win. But if they go in and they take Mississippi State for granted, they will leave Starkville with a loss. And I am absolutely terrified, Darren. I believe this is an 11 a.m. start.
Yeah.
Which is always a major ordeal for LSU for some reason.
Yep, absolutely. And I think the other thing we have to really just very quickly, I don't care who you are, it is difficult to head to Starkville to play for whatever reason. That always presents even more of a challenge. And it's not necessarily because it's like a Death Valley type experience. You know, if you go to LSU, for whatever reason, it really presents a challenge to the visiting team when they come in.
More cowbell.
There you go. Oh, I might have to mute the game and watch it. I'm not going to lie.
The next game up is Kansas State traveling to Missouri. A matchup of Big 12 and SEC schools, or used to be two Big 12 schools. So when you look at this game, Darren, Kansas State's rolling right now. Missouri, I think they're 2-0 as well, but not quite the notoriety that Kansas State is receiving right now. What do you think about this game?
I think Missouri State's worst case scenario is to have a defense come into town, no matter who they've played against, that presents itself as stingy, and that's exactly what Kansas State defense does. I don't think that bodes well for the Missouri offense. Well, you listen to Miami fans talk, and they are not. Coach Drink and his "May the Force be with you" is not cute to them anymore. They may be 2-0, but it's not the 2-0 they expected. And I'm very afraid that this game is going to start an ugly, ugly time for Eli Drinkwitz in Missouri. I think Kansas State wins this game.
I'm going to go with Missouri in this game because I want to be able to say the name Drinkwitz several times next week in our podcast in a favorable light.
I like it.
And of course, to throw in a Star Wars reference, how can you resist that?
It's a beautiful thing.
You can't resist the Force.
No. Well done.
South Carolina and Shane Beamer is traveling down to Athens to face the #1 ranked Georgia Bulldogs, who are also undefeated, but not tested up to this point yet. Is this going to be a test for Georgia, or is this going to be another Georgia rout? What do you think, Darren?
I think unless South Carolina finds some kind of way to return 3 kickoffs, maybe 4 punts, and block every punt or field goal Georgia attempts, that there's just not a scenario that South Carolina wins this game. Yes, Georgia has not looked impressive. You do not look at what they've done so far and think, oh, well, that's no-brainer, a 12-0 team. That being said, I don't know that South Carolina can score against them. So Georgia's got the horses on offense that even if their scheme is not going the way you would think it would, they can still outscore this team. So this is a Georgia win.
Yeah, Georgia. Tennessee traveling to Florida in a very used to be a huge rivalry.
Absolutely.
I guess we could still say it is, although teams are trending in different directions. Tennessee, despite some questions, it seems to be rolling again. Florida seems to be struggling in the process that Billy Napier is taking the team through to rebuilding them to a championship level team. This could be a trap game for Tennessee.
Yep.
But Darren, I'm going to go with the Volunteers. I think they're going to go down. I think Joe Milton is going to correct some issues he had in the previous game. I think Tennessee. I think Josh Heupel is going to come up with a game plan that's going to get them out of that game with a victory. What about you?
I'm a fan of Josh Heupel. That being said,
but
yes, exactly. Big but. I've had concerns all offseason about Joe Milton. We've talked about it several times, and he showed that tendency to get nervous and overthrow, to turn everything into a rocket and everything into an overthrown rocket, especially during the first quarter. And this past week, and that was against Austin Peay. So when Joe Milton heads into Gainesville, because is it statistically the rivalry it used to be? No. This Saturday, when the game starts, will it seem like that big of a rivalry in Gainesville? I think so. So I think it's going to be a very intimidating atmosphere, and I think it gets the best of Joe Milton. I think he starts off looking that same way that he did against Austin Peay. It could be even worse for a longer amount of time, depending on what Florida is able to do with it. And it's there in Gainesville. That's been tough for Tennessee for 2 decades. I think Florida pulls off the upset. I'm calling Florida in this one.
You started this analysis with a but, and it got me thinking, but is a big conjunction. It changes the whole course of a statement. You were exactly leading us. I like Josh Heupel, but
what did you say? I like indefinite articles. Yeah. I like big conjunctions.
You like you watched Schoolhouse Rock, didn't you? Conjunction.
That's exactly right.
What's your function? Have you had some painful butts in your life, Darren? Were you in grade school when the girl said, "I like you, Darren, but," or the teacher said, "Darren, you're showing a lot of potential, but."
Hey, Darren, everybody in the class got a good grade, but you didn't. That may have happened a couple of times.
We might need to do an episode on the parts of speech in the English language. This is way too entertaining.
I think we're pretty close to having one put together.
Yeah. But we need to get back to the picks.
Exactly.
We've got Vanderbilt against a powerhouse UNLV led by Jerry Tarkanian. They're going to.
Well, the Running Rebels.
The Running Rebels do not exist any longer, Jerry Tarkanian. And that was basketball anyway. I don't know if UNLV has ever done anything in football, but the Commodores are traveling to Vegas. Maybe they'll have some good recreational time. I can't see this being much of a game. I've got Vanderbilt winning this.
It scares me, especially when you look at the Vegas odds, and Vanderbilt on the road against a team like UNLV is only a 2-point favorite. That tells me that Vegas doesn't trust AJ Swan. It scares me, but I think Vanderbilt, I'm hoping this is the road test that kind of corrects some things and gets things a little bit on path. And I'm going to believe that. So I'm going Vanderbilt in this one as well.
Nice. And not a single but.
That's right. No buts in that one.
Georgia Tech, Rambling Rick, travels to Oxford to face the Ole Miss Rebels. Darren, who you got?
I have to go Ole Miss. I can't. I just don't see anything but Ole Miss in this one. I think it's going to be pretty convincing. Not just Ole Miss, but Ole Miss. I think that's the way this one's going to go. How about you, Ben?
I've got Ole Miss, and I think as the season goes on, we are going to appreciate more and more Lane Kiffin's hiring of Pete Golding on the defensive side of the ball. I think
Agree.
this team is going to continue to get better and better and better.
Yep, agree completely.
BYU is traveling to Fayetteville to face the Hogs of Arkansas, led by KJ Jefferson. Darren, I look at this game and I think we're all going to be calling the Hogs. I've got Arkansas winning this.
I agree completely. I think it has a little bit of a different look if they're by chance, going to Utah, but in Fayetteville, this is an Arkansas win.